still successful, but I still think that was a prime motivator for me. AI sort of transformed everything overnight, and I cannot overstate the importance of it. Some of us can see it coming, some of us will take time to adapt to it, but in about 3 to 5 years, we'll be living in a very different world, was my conviction. And so I met Marilyn at that time, and I told her that I'm thinking of making a pivot from the talent games and going into AI and HR specific domain. And one of the earliest questions that she posed to me was, in her own words, that it's a wild, wild west out there. Like, what are you going to do? Companies don't really understand what AI is, let alone adopt it. And so we spent the next 1 year really thinking through that problem, and hence Galvico was born. Galvico right now is at a pre-stage. As I said, it's focused primarily on AI in HR. We target large size enterprises. We are supported by Scale AI, which is Canada's AI supercluster, which means that we are one of the few companies that Canada thinks has the potential to grow into a unicorn and can support their growth strategy in the AI space. Right now, we're valued at about 5 million. And I'll go into details of what the products does and how it came about and what those details are. But this was sort of the turning point for me to foray into this new space and bid farewell to Talent Games. I sold my stake there. Yes, I took it very seriously, the whole AI wave. And the objective was not to just ride the AI wave, was to be one of the first movers in this space so that we can create some really entrenched advantage as the industry grows. The first thing I did as I ventured into it was started talking to some really exciting people, because I was very, very convinced early on that HR tech is highly saturated. There are about a dozen companies popping up every day, and 95% of them will not see daylight after 3 years. And I don't want to be that company. I was very successful, I would say mildly successful with Talent Games. Maybe it was beginner's luck, but this time around, I really wanted to be, as they say, a big boys game. So I reached out to people who I thought were industry leaders or high achievers in their domain and spent the last 8 months curating a very high performing team. Brian is one of those people. Brian sold his first company to Salesforce for $300 million. His second company was bought by Cevent for another similar amount. So he knows how the startup scale up journey works. And he's been crucial in shaping our technology so that we can pace it with that end goal of turning into a unicorn in mind. Miranda comes from Accenture as a data governance lead, so she brings in a lot of experience. And as we talk later on in my discussion, you'll know why data governance is very important in HR specifically. So that's a very high performance vertical for us. And that was a good lead for us to get on board. Melon and Cindy, of course, they don't need any introduction, and they are crucial to my growth strategy only because, as I said, that if you approach it as a startup or a passion project, 2 to 3 years you'll fizzle out. But if you approach it as a business, you have to do some things right at a foundational level. And so one of those things is making partnerships early, bringing on board advisors like the ones I'm talking to you right now, and making sure we have some really exciting leadership positions on our portfolio. Javad, again, is a very interesting individual. He's an inventor with IBM. He has 10 patents under his own belt over the past 7 years. So very close to the agenda we are trying to achieve. And I can acknowledge the curiosity around the product and what we do, but let's just let it wait for a few more minutes. What I'm willing to achieve out of this conversation or looking to achieve is two things. My ability to chart out a pathway, and this can be any stage of that pathway. It can be all the way till acquisition of that pilot, making an introduction for that pilot, or any step in between. Or individuals who can come on board as early advisors and who can really help us turn this idea or this concept into a large multinational organization that we envision it to be. In terms of pilot, I'm very focused on our target persona, which is a large enterprise with enterprise grade HR challenges, which means it's complex, has a lot of people. The people are spread out across multiple geographies. There are data fragmentation challenges. There are people planning challenges, talent management and mobility issues because of those complexities. And that's the sort of environment I think our solution will thrive in. And so those are the kind of pilots we're trying to curate early on. It's important for us to have those pilots early on because we don't want to be, as I said, a company who comes up with a solution and then chases the entire industry trying to make ends meet. We want to create a solution in cahoots with the industry so that when it's finally launched, it solves a lot of problems in a very short span of time and we can scale quickly. So we're not taking a rushed approach towards going to revenue generation straight away. We're pacing it in a way that it needs to be done the right way with the right partners in place, with the right advisors on board and all. In terms of advisors, we have set aside a 10% advisory pool and another 10% employee stock pool, which means that advisors who potentially want to grow into leadership positions and come on board more full time do have opportunities to stick around and grow as the company grows. Now, again, as I said, it's a spectrum. Some might want to be at a certain stage with they want to share certain hours of their time. Some would want to have their sleeves slightly more rolled up, and some would want to dive in right in it with us. So based on how your interest is, based on how much you think you can contribute, we're open to having those discussions. In fact, we've designed it in a way that it can facilitate those transitions in the long run. And of course, the rest of the company stock is not close to all anybody. This is fair game for investors, maybe some strategic hires down the line, and other co-founders that join us down the bandwagon. So that's the context of all, like why Talent Games was successful, but I felt that I am about to face unsuccessfulness, or maybe the right word for it. And then how we pivoted to Galvico and then made a team, and here we are today. But why AI and why HR? Or a good question can be if AI can ever be in HR, it being such a human-centric role, right? If we look at HR today, it becomes very clear, and this is before even AI came into the picture, is that it's a very fragmented space. There are multiple solutions, there are many automations, but if you look at it from the top down, those automations are causing a lot of manual overload. Some of our data is reposited in X repository, some of it is in Y repository. Making those two repositories talk to each other is a complex process. You have people dedicated to make sure that the data works fine. You have platforms for recruitment, talent management, and X number of platforms based on the needs you have. And yet, you find yourself behind Excel and PowerPoint. And by you, I mean the industry at large, most of the time. Like if any piece of technology was to be a best friend of an HR professional, in my opinion, it's either Excel or PowerPoint, because that's how most of the work in HR is done. We are consolidating data, we're preparing reports. Based on those reports, we're taking decisions. And then based on those decisions, we're making presentations and engaging our stakeholders. And that causes a lot of manual overload. And if you are being honest, a typical HR analyst spends 80% of their time in transactional work, and if they're really lucky, about 20% in transformational work, which should be the other way around. And it is the nature of how industries are structured right now that it cannot be done. Humans do not have the ability to look at large data sets, especially if that data set is fragmented into multiple systems, especially if talking to those systems requires another set of human beings that you need to go through. This means that HR processes can seldom be automated to the point that you want them to be automated. And this is without AI, like automation has existed for a while, but HR processes have not been able to grasp full benefit of it. This leads to missed connections, rising costs, employee frustrations, and overall leads us to a place where we have 20 plus systems per HR department, typical for an organization with 5,000 or more employees. They're spending about $3 million in integration and migration costs. They're doing another bunch of spend on data governance and hygiene, and it's overall really distracting them from doing transformational work within HR. Now, like if I was to say that organization acts as a lattice, within that lattice, if you change one thing, the entire lattice is impacted. The butterfly effect of your decisions in HR has far-reaching effects. But since we work in our own regional silos or our functional silos within HR, we cannot see those ripples, and hence that causes a lot of inefficiency within HR as well.
When it
So,
comes up,
yes.
that's not there.
Okay. So that is something which I think is a fair picture of where HR stands right now. And that's causing organizations, big and small, to lose out on a lot of their investments, may it be in talent management, workforce planning, data management, data migration, data hygiene, and it's a challenge overall. And looking at it, Galvico envisions an HR which is able to think bigger. So it can think beyond its transactional responsibilities and can look at transformational impacts into the business, can act smarter, which means that it's equipped with the right amount of data and can move faster, which means that it's not bogged down with manual work or repetitive tasks that's limiting them down. A good analogy for that can be that if you were to find out that your head of technology is to leave today, it would take 3 HR managers, possibly 3 regions of your organization, to mitigate the impact of that move. You would move somebody to that position, you would refer to a talent review, you will fill that position, some positions will be made vacant, and this whole process will take a while. Whereas technically, you should spend more time thinking about the strategic impact of those moves. You will spend more time in the transactional aspects of that. Similarly, if you were to present a report to the board tomorrow, you would be focused more on making sure that the numbers are aligned, the numbers tell the right story, but you would need to make a lot of manual effort reaching those numbers because of the fragmented nature of HR and the manual work that goes in between. So our vision is to create a platform that unifies all of HR data into a single platform that gives it a unique opportunity to interact with all sorts of solutions that are coming up right now in AI. It also gives you the ability to generate predictive insights, which means that HR today cannot securely predict the outcome of their decision, but an HR that has solved the problems that we've just discussed should have the ability to do that, which means that if you want to move somebody to a position from X to Y, you should know how would the entire organization respond as a reaction to this move. Or if you want to make a certain decision, let's say you have to start a new factory in Philadelphia that requires 200 people. How would that whole process go about? You should have that tool available that should automate the entire process and give you insights so that you can go right to the transformational decision making and not be bogged down. Now, there are tools that enable us to do all of that, but the challenges start coming in when we talk of the sensitive nature of HR data. It's very fragmented, yes, but on top of it, it's behind a very secured firewall because of the nature of it, which means that most of the AI tools that are coming up right now cannot securely interact with it without the fear of this data being lost into the void or into the cloud, where it can be used to train other models and stuff. So primarily, and a big part of our vision is to make a system that can reside within your own infrastructure and can help you deploy automation on your own based on your own data without having to rely on external vendors. So that's how we've looked at it. And some of the early results that we've been able to capture or quantify based on our working is that through our data ingestion bot, which is basically a bot that consolidates data from all of your HR systems and brings it into a single repository, automates its hygiene, make sure that it's clean, make sure that there are no missing fields, make sure that no no wrong access is given to a person who's not supposed to access that data, and does it as an agent on the go. So you don't have to hire consultants like Accenture and Deloitte. You don't have to hire teams that do all that manual data hygiene work. We do it through our bot. That system alone can save organizations which have 20 plus systems about 2 to 5 million a year. Another aspect of our platform is our DIY multi-agent support, which means once you have that data consolidated, you can deploy your own complex agents. And I'm using the word complex is because right now the word AI and agent is so conflated that anything can be called an agent. For us, an agent is a set of processes that can mimic a transactional process end to end, which can be recruitment from start to onboarding. So from the time that position becomes vacant to the time that the position is filled, that is a single agent. A talent management agent can be someone who can manage your entire succession pipeline on the go. So when I use the word agent, these are complex processes within HR that are automated through our agents and not just client service tools or some chatbots that organizations are coming up with now. So this in effect saves organizations roughly about 7 million. So the maths behind that is that you pay a $36 an hour wage and you save about $6,000, 6,000 hours per workflow. And that adds up for about $7 million for the overall 200,000 man hours that you save overall HR workflows that we've identified that can be automated. Of course, nobody would save all of those 200,000. Some might save very few, some might save a lot. But yes, agents give you now the ability to do a lot of your dirty work so that you can do a lot of strategic work. And then, of course, predictive scenario planning is something where our system gives you 3 prompts: analyze, execute, and simulate. So every time you log into your system, you get a bunch of notifications telling you that this has happened in the organizations. How would you like to react? And based on what you decide, you react to it. So you can say, execute this decision, I want to analyze it, or I want to see the impact of my decision before I take it. So that's where we're building a predictive planning tool for organizations. And of course, building a secure and governance first infrastructure, which is scalable and deployable across large enterprises, is important for us. We envision it to be a one size fit all AI HR automation platform, which means that as ERPs have ruled the past 20 years, we envision our platform or something similar going to be the fuel and fodder for HRs in the future, which means that platforms like these will sit as a central nervous system on which all of your data sources will come and connect. And then within that nervous system, you will connect a bunch of agents. Those can be proprietary agents of our own, or those can be third-party agents, all of which will do different tasks based on your own needs. So there might not be even vendors serving HRs in the future. Your own analyst, based on your own need, would go there, deploy a certain workflow, automate it, and be on their way. So that's how we think HR is going to evolve. We certainly don't think that humans will be out of the equation going forward, but we think it will be a drastically different world where decision-making will take center stage and transactional work will become less and less important. And we want to be the first platform or among the first platforms that do that. In terms of the opportunity itself, we envision to reach 5% of large enterprises globally, which we size to be about 20,000 right now. Based on our calculation, our average client value will grow from $150,000 a year to $738,000 a year over the next 5 years. And if you multiply that with our target market of 1,000 clients only, you're looking at about 738 million in annual revenue potential that we are targeting with this venture. And the reason why we are so confident is that AI as an infrastructure is coming up in a fairly nascent stage, especially within HR. So being first movers in this space, we find ourselves in a very unique opportunity. And of course, HR agents, the word agent is so loosely used right now and so vaguely defined that there are no entrenched player right now. And we want to capitalize on that. and I'll go back to my initial asks once again at this point is, and that's why we need advisors and pilots. Like I can do a bunch of other conversation points with you, can paint a very dystopian picture of the future, can sell a lot of functionality, but what will really matter is how the market responds to it over the next 12 to 18 months, what features take precedence, what priorities are set by the corporates, and we want to be there when those decisions are made, either through our advisors or through the pilots that we're executing them, so that we have a product market fit and not a bunch of features that we found glossy and glamorous. Right now, if I was to give you a lay of the land, this is how the industry looks like. This is a Gartner quadrant. Uh, on one hand, you have tools which promise automation. On other, you have tools that are already selling you AI. And in order to make it slightly more easy visually, I have it in a tabular form as well. So let me move to that so that you can then see how these differ. But if I break them down, you have your standard HR suites right now, which will be sprinkling a lot of AI on top over the next 3 to 5 years. So Workday will come up with their own version of AI agents. Oracle will do their own stuff. SuccessFactors will do their own. But the fact that these are legacy softwares, they will not be able to survive the complexity of the AI era unless they acquire some cutting edge technologies like ours, which we are building, or they come up with some drastically new solutions. So either way, we stand to gain advantage of this opportunity as a potential exit 3 to 5 years from now with one of these companies. Then you have the AI and machine learning platforms, which I've highlighted because these are currently not within the everyday jargon of a typical HR user. Some of you might know of these, but these will become more and more important as we move forward. Data warehousing, data automation, data conversing, making sure that you have the ability to talk to your data is already being sold by almost all HR vendors in one form or the other. So this is something that exists out there, but we believe that this will fizzle out very quickly into the background and become the ecosystem or the backbone on which the future will exist. So platforms like Amazon, Databricks will exist in all organizations if they don't right now, but you will not see them because around them will be built automation technologies. So our data automation bot gives us this unique opportunity that for HR, we can be that data warehouse or that central data dictionary around which any other future organization can hinge their AI solutions and build their automation strategies. Then comes your ADP Assist and UiPath sort of automation tools, highly powerful, compliance centric, but limited to rule-based automation, which in this day and age has already become so last century. Like with AI, these technologies are already very archaic. ADP will most probably go the Workday and Oracle way. They have humongous amounts of data. They will make strategic investments and they will find some niche that they will capture. But what that is still to be seen. Then you have Salesforce, Accenture, and Microsoft. They are coming up with their own agents, but those agents do not, up until now, have the ability to mimic HR processes. In fact, none of the solutions right now do. So we stand to be the first movers there and enter the industry from that angle of HR. And then Zapier, again, with its automation tool, lacks the ability in its current form to be an AI first tool. So if I go back to the quadrant now, we find ourselves uniquely positioned on the right top end of the quadrant where we are HR centric, where we have a data centric platform which automates data integration and data hygiene. And that gives you the ability to define and automate HR workflows on that platform. So in terms of my own vision, and I hope I let it come to fruition, this is what a future of an ERP can look like. An organization that gives you the ability to not only talk to your data, but move your data around and define automation. Some of the challenges that we foresee in creating this solution, technology is the last one of it. That's perhaps the easiest one right now with so much going on these days. It's becoming a large size enterprise from day one. so that we can serve large size enterprises, which means that it needs to be beyond my own ability to attract clients, but my ability to work hand in hand with them and solve some problems today so that we can solve it for the rest of the industry later on. All the way from being onboarded to large enterprises for a small company like me, which is in pre-revenue stage, going through the hoops of due diligence, making sure that we are SOC2 compliant and all that, making sure that we have people rooting for us within large, complex organizations, making sure that we are getting into the right amount of contracts, uh, building momentum through goodwill, exploiting some of existing networks that some of the senior leaders within the industry have, helping us define certain processes. This is very important for me. For me, this tool can go so much beyond HR, but let's even within HR, you have compensation, you have learning, you have development, you have workforce management. If I automate a single process, that's $5,000 worth of agent for me that I can then sell to 1,000 clients of my own. So for me, it's very important to see those processes in a granular way. So people who have a passion of working with their sleeves rolled up into processes, or people who have a passion of meeting and developing strong networks are equally important to us, either as advocates or as subject matter experts. We have been able to chart out an interesting investment pathway. Canada's AI supercluster gives us some early funds to scale up our technology through the pilot stage. We've been getting a few grants from them. We have, since I'm based out of the East Coast here in Canada, Canada being one of the best countries to be an entrepreneur in because of its government grants and stuff. We have, for every dollar invested in our company, matched by the government. So having investors and partners on our portfolio early on will be extremely important, but this will also double the amount of funds we raise. So let's say if I raise $1 million today, I can, by my virtue of being in Canada, double it up through the grants and opportunities we have here. Now, going back slightly to my point of being a big boy from day one, I would want to be in front of Sequoia and Anderson Horowitz kind of investors from day one, or at least have a pathway or a journey that gets me set up for those investors later on. Similarly, I would like to pilot with some of the more established, complex businesses out there so that we can be established as a player to look out for from day one. So maybe not doing a pilot with a mom and pop startup like my own, but established enterprise that we are aspiring to be would be important for me. And then, of course, messaging, market positioning, and these are some of the roles that I have in mind. As I said, I come to you guys with an open mind. And if anything, I'm pretty flexible towards learning if it lets me achieve my vision of creating the next big HR unicorn. So on that note, I
Thank you.
take on.
No, thank you so much, Shail. We've gone just a touch long here, but it'd be lovely to be able to open up the audience for some Q&A, some reflections, some clarifications, and then also in the chat is a link too for questionnaire to be completed for follow-on conversations. I'll put that out there again. But just wanted to open up the floor, particularly on the technical side. Anyone want to talk about what's happening in China this week?
Marilyn, Tim has his hand up.
Oh, Tim, there you go. I see you. Tim.
Oh, where do I start? This is great. This is an exciting vision to see. I have two questions. Number one, I love the comparison showing your advantage, but I'm wondering what your thoughts in terms of the established customers of WorkTech, Oracle. They already claim, because I've been their customer, they claim to have a unified platform and blazing a AI trail. I'm just curious as how do you pull those customers from and educate potential customers to understand your differentiation. And then the other thing is just understanding in your vision, what a day in the life would look like for an HR business partner once you're fully deployed with your system, and for the people they support.
Perfect. So I'll start with the latter question first. A typical day in the life of an HR business partner, as I envision it to be, would look like you using your iPhone every morning and getting a bunch of notifications. And those notifications will highlight some of the key tasks and objectives that you have to achieve or have achieved. So one of that can be person X was moved from this position to that position. And as a business partner, as I said, you would have the opportunity to either say, okay, I like this move, execute this decision, or I want to analyze the reason why this move has been initiated. And you can drill down and see the rationale behind it. Or you can say, execute, but I want to simulate the impact of this decision or this move before happening. And it'll show that if you move this person from position A to position B, this is the impact on the overall function, business, or the organization will be. And as you take that decision, some other person within HR will get a notification saying that this move has been initiated and this input will become a task for them. So now you have an organization that is in complete symphony, whereby each task results in another outcome to be executed by another team member. And that entire circle is a closed loop where you can take a decision, all the stakeholders do whatever they need to do within their own environment. And then as you would talk to your colleague, your AI would do those things for you. You, on the other hand, would be the supervisor managing those decisions along and spending more time on the strategic implications of those decisions rather than the transactional aspects of it. It can be various workflows within HR. This was just one of them.
Thank you.
You know, one of the things just on your first question, Tom, on the Workday and the SAP and the Oracle, just to Shail, you had shared this with me, and it was a really kind of an aha moment. Within those platforms, they have the AI. But what happens when you have other platforms in a decision tree? And so every single one of the customers of any of the large, call it system of records, there's always a symphony of other platforms that work with it. And this is where it breaks. It's fragile because then the workflow is use case, or the data, the quality of the data is use case specific. And then when you have data processes that transcend just Workday, what happens? That's where there's the chasm. So these are Shail's words, not mine, but I'm just kind of coming back to Shail when you educated. I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, you're right. That's exactly what's going on.
No, so that's exactly it. And I think that's primarily why you need to have a platform where you unify all your data in a single place so that you can then automate those workflows. Otherwise, in case of a simple move within an organization, sometimes payroll, finance, and HR will have 3 systems. And based on how good of a talking terms you are with your finance director, you might not even have access to those systems in finance or other functions. So it takes a while for that data to really be sifted through. And as Workday or as Oracle and SAP grow in towards their AI solution, they also start becoming more and more protective. So AI data that's hosted within Workday is not now fair game for SAP, because now everybody's worried if somebody will train their system on my data, what will happen? And with AI models, governance becomes an issue. So that's the premise, that instead of having a system of record, you have your own data warehouse within an organization, which you're confident is not leaving your infrastructure, on which all these systems come and connect. Now, once they've connected to it, you can do a bunch of automation, and there are tools from all the way from Workday to Google to Salesforce that give you the ability to automate those decisions or those workflows once you have access to that data. But then you're sharing your data with third-party cloud vendors who can then use that data to do X amount of things, and then it becomes a compliance question. And again, when you have that data within your organization, it makes more sense to give your analysts the access to deploy those workflows on their own rather than any third-party vendor to design and deploy that. So that's how we see it. And having the ability to have that data securely hosted within your infrastructure can be provided from companies like Snowflake and Databricks. But then comes the question of who will have access to what data and how will that data be written back into the master system. So it's not just if Workday is making a solution, would it work, but the logistics of it. How would that system connect to other systems? How would my decision impact the system backwards so that those can be reflected into the system and so on?
Anna's got her hand raised.
Anna, and then John, you had a question too. So should we go Anna first and then John?
Yes, thank you, and a very good product. We are now like discussing a lot about AI within our company. There is also Palantir. I don't know if you heard of this tool, but they are also like a brain system that connect all ERP and that is convert into intelligence to make decision. One of the concerns towards those things, it is like data privacy and cybersecurity, right? So, and I think getting to the market, there is a lot of fear in the organizations, like, is my data protected? Are my employees' information, where it's going to be, stored? So I think this is an important thing that you need to bring when you're doing your pitch, because that is a game stopper for a lot of companies. And when they say like, oh, we have a Workday, SAP, success factors, and we're going to integrate to AI. Oh, no, no way, AI, cybersecurity, no. So that's one point that it's important. I want to understand your approach to that. And then there is another startup, it's Guppy. It is from Brazil that they do recruiting. But we learned through them that if you set the wrong profiles, it learns from the wrong specification and then gives you a bad results. And there was no connection to the KPIs or to the success rate or turnover in the recent hires to capture that the artificial intelligence were learning by a bad or wrong practice. So you're talking about efficiency, growth, big picture, forget about transactional HR, let's be strategic, right? So how is your AI evolving and learning in a smart way to really bring efficient and helping HR to be better and better support the business? So those are my 2 points or 3.
Perfect. I think to answer your question around data privacy, that's at the very heart of what we're doing. And that's why we're creating our data unification bot that exists within your infrastructure. So we're not hosting any of our solution in the cloud. It's an on-prem solution where it will be deployed and all that data will be hosted within the secure confines of your own infrastructure. Once that is done, you will have RBCA, which we call role-based access controls, RBACs, in fact, where you have different people within the HR having access to that data based on the level that they need access to. Because not everybody in HR needs to have access to all data also.
Yeah.
So that's another element of it. Thirdly, we are not training our system on taking decisions. We are training our system on decision pathways. And this is something which is very unique towards our approach, which nobody else is doing. We are creating a system that ends up creating human cyborgs and not replace it with robots. Whereas an automated system will create the challenges you've presented, where it might take a wrong decision and then the entire domino will fall down. Our vision is that AI can bring a lot of efficiency in the transactional side. Processes that are happening from A to B every day, those can be automated readily. But whenever there is a decision touch point, we have a human supervisor involved. And that's the example I made, whereby analyze, execute, simulate. So before anything is done, humans have the ability to analyze the impact of their decision. And if they are satisfied, they can take that. And if they want to simulate that impact before taking it, they can do that. So that's like the core point of it. But around it, creating that secure layer is part of our core vision. Like it is a compliance first solution. And we understand that we can go nowhere if the data as much as leaves your infrastructure one bit. Like, so we have to create it in a way that once the solution is deployed, our servers do not have anything to do with it. And if we do, we have masking technologies in between. So we mask all the sensitive data and we only parse the information we need. Carolyn, yes, you had a question.
Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Yes, I just was curious, and maybe what you just said answers that question, because it's decisioning process versus making the decisions. I'm wondering about some of the lessons we've learned in bias, inherent bias, in building the systems, and how are you approaching creating a ethically based, bias-free decisioning process
Okay, so what we've done is
because of the machine learning.
Yes. No, so that's why we've done it in a way that we are mapping workflows end to end in organizations, and we're creating a universal workflow which mimics almost a typical organization, which means that if succession planning is involved, these are the steps in succession planning. At this step, these are the interdependencies in terms of data. These are the interdependencies in terms of people. So, and the example again is succession in terms of succession planning. You have to initiate a move. When a move needs to be initiated, what's the current formula for doing that? Number of years of experience, potential, all those things. And how can the system do that when automated? So once you've mapped it, you replicate that system through agents and tell them to move across the entire pathway. And at each of the pathway, when they intersect a decision point, they highlight a notification to the human user. So that's how we're going around it. We believe that over the time, like 6 months to a year, as the system takes more and more of those decisions, we can create a use case where we can say that, yes, these decisions are now 80% certain, are being taken with 80% certainty or not. So though that can come with time, but I don't think we will ever have, or at least not in the immediate future, where humans will not be involved in vetting those decisions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, and then John, you had a question?
Yeah. First, I just want to say I think your business model is very powerful and compelling. But I'm also wondering if your technology and your platform has been developed internally, or are you using third parties or consultants to assist?
Oh, so we're building it internally. Right now, what we've done is we have had a few contracted employees who've developed it for us. As we get more funding, we'll bring them on board as more permanent employees. Our product architecture, our product infrastructure is all hosted internally. And this is a lesson I learned from my experience with the talent games, is that none of the investors would like it, and none of the large corporates would like it if you have your technology in the hands of someone else. So we're very consciously building it in-house.
Thank you.
Gail, I have learned sort of the hard way that sometimes good ideas are not sufficient to spell success. And there seems to be a psychology of adoption. And I'm finding a lot of employers very wary of AI. And so I guess my question is, how do you overcome the wariness that many employers have about moving from old ways of doing things to new ways?
Perfect. I think the two things about it. I am taking a very conscious pilot-driven approach in which I work with only 4 pilots or 5 pilots over the next 12 months. So I go in, I build that buy-in, I really build that rapport and solve the problems that they really face. So not a vitamin, not a painkiller, but an antibiotic that solves something visible for them and saves them a bunch of money. So that's the first thing. It's like I'm not going there to sell them an AI solution. AI can be one of the weapons in my arsenal to solve that business problems, is how I'm approaching it. Second is my Trojan horse approach, which is that I am not even going to pitch automation to corporates in the first phase of my outreach. I am pitching them data unification, data hygiene, and data automation. What that means is that if I was to go and pitch them AI today, and they say, fine, we like your vision, here's a pay order, go deploy your AI. We can't. Having access to their data would become a barrier. If we have access to their data, getting that data clean would become a barrier. If we have that cleaned, training our solution on that data would become a barrier. So we want to spend the next 3 to 6 months working just on the data problem, really solving the data fragmentation issue in HR. And in doing so, we will own the data, which means not own it in the sense that we can train other system, but we will be the platform they'll use to consolidate their data. Now, future startups, when they come and pitch to them, will have the same challenge that they will not have access to that data, but they will then have our platform that they can connect to. So we want to be the early mover in this corporate HR space that automates their data hygiene, normalization, and unification. Once we've done that, we believe that either our automation solutions or any third-party automation solutions can come and hinge on it. And at that stage, we're indifferent. Data itself will become such a powerful driver for our success that automation will be a cherry on top.
Thank you.
Marilyn and Shael, we're at time.
Yep.
So the link that Marilyn shared in chat, I'll put those links in the email that I follow up with. There'll be the recording, so you can listen to it again, Shael's deck, and then the links that Marilyn shared. And Shael and Marilyn both will be copied on the email, so reach out if you have further questions or more interest in really helping Shael with being an advisor or being a pilot. Marilyn, anything else you want to add?
Thank you for your questions, for your attention, and for the follow-on conversations.
And
So, really
Shael,
appreciate
thank you for your presentation. Appreciate it.
Yes.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.